Want to do better? Then it's time to change the story. Welcome to our show about new visions currently transforming the world through the confluence of art, tech, and innovation. And now your hosts, Michael Ashley and Neil Sahota.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Changing the Story. Got a fantastic guest today, Mei Tsang. She's an intellectual property partner at the prestigious business litigation and intellectual property firm Umberg and Zipser LLP. She has substantial experience in patent and trademark portfolio development and in all aspects of intellectual property enforcement, including negotiation, licensing, and litigation. Clients also depend on her multicultural background and language abilities to help them expand and navigate their IP strategy worldwide. I'll tell you, that's no easy task given my experience doing patents. Mei, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Neil, for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
Well, you're quite the guru when it comes to legal law, but how did Mei become Mei? What set you down this path?
I love that question. How did Mei become Mei? I think Mei is still figuring out who Mei is on a daily basis. Mei is ever evolving. Well, let me tell you a little bit about myself. So I, came to this country at 13 as an immigrant from China. And even before that, I was moving within China between Hong Kong and Xi'an, which is the ancient capital of China. And by the time I was 31, I actually have physically moved, where either somebody had to haul your stuff in a truck or you have to hire somebody. So by the time I was 31, I moved 30 times.
Wow.
And a lot of times, yes, those were, across countries or across states. So I think one of the things about me is that I know about changes and sort of adversity. Every time when you make a change, it's a new environment. It's a new place for you to get used to. It's a new group of people. It's a new way of thinking. Each place has their culture, has their sort of, undertoning of what is it about that town, about that city. So I think that allowed me to become the me today. And I lived, in big cities in China, in Hong Kong. I lived in the Midwest in a small town in Indiana. I lived in Chicago, St. Louis, DC. And also overseas in London, and all those things have, just really taught me, about this worldview of understanding where people are coming from. And I'm always trying to kind of put myself in other people's shoes. With our current political climate, for example, there's such polarization. And I've known so many on the spectrum, and I have really been thinking about this hard. And it's because I think when you live from one place and grow from one place and surround yourself with similar places and similar people, that shapes your point of view. You could read about things, you could watch shows, you could talk to people, but how you live on a day-to-day basis really shape you. And as far as becoming a lawyer, I always wanted to do that. And the reason was silly. And when I was young, because I watched a Hong Kong movie with Andy Lau, and he was in a British wig and robe, and he was fighting for the poor, and it just really made me feel like, oh, this is something I could do. But when I came to America, I didn't think that was something that I could achieve because I had a lot of language barrier at that time. However, over the years, after getting a degree in biology, that set the path for becoming a patent attorney, which I didn't know at the time. However, after working a couple years in medical sales, I realized, let me take a look at this LSAT thing. And once I looked at it, I was like, okay, I think I can do this. I think my English is okay. I'm gonna give it a try. And here I am, almost 20 years later, which is crazy to think I've been practicing for so long. But it's such a rewarding profession. I love intellectual property. I love this profession because it's always about new technology, new concepts, And it's also about the people behind it. I have so many clients that they really literally have a dream. And what impressed me the most is that most of these folks have had a lot of adversity in their lives. I'm sure you and many of those others that this path to success is not always straightforward. So, and it's watching these folks, once they hit a venture, they fail, they get back up, and then they keep going and going. And so I've learned so much from my clients, and it's really humbled me every day. So, and that's kind of where I am now. I have 2 boys, and my husband, and this is a new chapter, this COVID thing. I'm doing hybrid learning every day. I have gone back to school, I say, for, learning about slopes and all sorts of learning about early American history, which is so fascinating as what we're going through. So that's a little bit about me, Neil.
Well, May, you've had an incredible journey, and I think my experience, my own, and a lot of people that have had a chance to actually move around a bit. I know that people think it's not the best thing, but I think their exposure to different people and cultures really shapes a broader perspective. Like the most innovative people I've known are ones that at a young age had that kind of experience.
Yeah, exactly. At the time, I think I never appreciated it because I moved so many different schools and moved so many different places. But it also made me realize, you could be at a place where things are it's sort of, they might not be your tribe, but it's okay because you know that there are other tribes. And then also you develop language to know how to bridge with people. So even if a group seems very closed off to you, there's always commonality at the end of the day. There's always stuff that binds us as humans. So yes, I'm very grateful for all the crazy moves I had over the years, and I'm hoping not to move anymore. I love Orange County, and I'm very happy here. So,
All right,
despite
sorry,
all
rest of the world, Orange County is apparently where it's at.
right, despite the fires and all the craziness that's Orange County, but it's a great place to live and raise a family.
All right, so I honestly have never heard of someone that was watching like a Hong Kong action movie and that inspired them to be a lawyer, let alone an intellectual property lawyer. What attracted you to IP?
Well, having had a science degree in college, it's always fascinating. I concentrated in genetics, which at that time was still pretty elementary. We're just learning, the preliminary DNA threads that, Watson and Crick just discovered. And you think about how much of that now has advanced in a short amount of time. So I think I just love new concepts, new ideas. And I think intellectual property law is where someone can really satisfy that curiosity, right? And I also love the law because the law is kind of what makes us civilized, what give us our country, its construct, right? Everything is sort of in these confines of these written words. So in terms of new technology, new concept, it's about them coming up and then carving out a little monopoly, right? Because we live in a capitalistic world, and say, this is something I came up with. This is something that I can exclude others from doing. And that's very powerful, obviously. This is what companies base their livelihood on, right? And it's these innovations, and every company that we have helped, it doesn't stop too. They don't just come up with one great idea. They constantly keep going. And yet the law constantly changes. For example, with, the introduction of AI technology, there is just so much new things that the laws are trying to catch up. A few years ago, software patents was the vogue, and there were just so many software patents. And then the Supreme Court had to put a kibosh on that, right? Just because to balance it out and to really figure out how how this world can accept technology moving forward. And also it's equal in that sense that when I meet an inventor, somebody who's an entrepreneur, they have that spirit. I'm sure you've seen it. They just have that fire in them, because by no means this is an easy journey. You know, I give so much credit to those entrepreneurs, because they make it look easy on Shark Tank. You come up with an idea, you go and have a fat, you know, flashy pitch, and next thing you know, you make tons of money. But what they don't see is the sweat, both in terms of, you know, equity sweat and physical sweat, and the sacrifices they have to make. Yet they believe, right? And they also, I think for successful companies, they need to have the right team member. And you'll hear me say this over and over again. It's all about the people, really. It's all about the people that you have walk on this journey with you. Whether it's with your company, your family, your community, that's the most important. And it's how we can get them to bridge the differences and come along. I think that's the most important part.
Well, it is. And I can attest to everyone, having helped out several entrepreneurs, that 18-hour days and couch surfing and, you know, eating out of ramen noodles every day, not a glamorous life, but, you know, you put the work in and hopefully get rewarded. Lot to unpack here, Mei, because as you were talking about, like, how technology is kind of impacting or transforming law itself is going through like a big inflection point. You know, I'm seeing a lot of change in the industry around talent management and regulatory policy around technology and retention strategies. And I could probably list like 20 things, but, you know, right now, what do you think is the most challenging thing for the law industry to confront?
Yes, I think that's, you know, a very important question, because I think even before COVID, the legal industry was facing a lot of challenges. One of the big ones is sort of I think it's really recruiting top talent, recruiting great talent. You know, law school admission have been down. The law jobs is no longer seen as a glamorous job. Young folks realize how difficult and challenging it is. And how hard of a job it really is too. It really is a tough marathon run. It's not a sprint. So you have that, and also technology, like you said, there's so many things that are sort of replacing what's traditionally seen as legal services, contract writing, discovery issues, now that can all be automated. You know, quite a few large law firms have their own AI associates. So it really begs the question is what do lawyers do? Who are lawyers? You know, we're actually having a sort of an existential crisis, so to speak, of this basic question, because even patents, there are softwares out there that write patents, right? So what's going to happen with that? I think we're in the crux of, you know, and I think this is not just unique to the legal industry, right? This is sort of a bigger question that many industry faces, but it's like who we are and how do we go forward and still create value. Clients are demanding more and more, you know, and they now, because of the internet, now when I first started, we were just on the cusp of transforming from book research to online research, and it was a big deal. But yet you had content that only attorneys had access to by paying these huge subscription. But now you pretty much can find anything on the internet. So there's a lot of DIY component to it. And therefore, again, it's a huge sort of obstacle for lawyers to overcome. I think to be a robust lawyer, you have to really think outside the box and think more comprehensively as not just a legal consultant for your clients, but as a business consultant, as sometimes a psychological coach. I've done that so many times. My clients become, you know, part of it, very intimate conversations, because it's about their passion, their business, and that evolves into so many different facets. So we have to think of how do we, you know, as an industry going forward, how do we define ourselves? So I think those are some of the biggest challenges.
Well, I think you touched upon something actually critical that I think most people actually don't realize. For people that are not familiar with the legal industry, One, they've historically just been slow to change, like you're talking about. I mean, often they're making very good money, and they're like, why should I fix something that's not broken, right? The second thing is some of these things, especially with the technological innovation and the use of AI, or even like document management systems or e-discovery. Um, what I've seen is it's a business model problem for like a lot of law firms because they're so used to the billable hour model. It's like, well, if I use like Legalmation's AI, that associate lawyer that was going to do 10 hours worth of billable work, now they're doing like 30 minutes, right? How do I,
Right.
it's not just how do I keep that guy busy, where do I get work, or how do I charge for stuff,
Yeah, exactly. I think this is a conversation. I'm on a couple different groups. One of them is the managing law firm legal partners in Orange County. And we're actually going to we've been having a lot of discussion about this. And this is not just a new problem, but it's constant, right? So there are things that used to take a lot of labor work that's much less now. So, and charging, I mean, used to be just about volume of hours, and then have a corresponding price tag to that. However, people now are paying so much more. They want more flat fee arrangement. They want more alternative fees, maybe, sort of a hybrid of sort of, success fee. If you make something happen for me, then I'm going to give you a bigger reward. So I do think law firms have to adjust. And you're right, law firms are very, very slow in terms of change. And what's actually one great thing coming out of COVID is that for the longest time, there was this expectation that if you can't be in the office physically, have that face time, it's going to be impossible to maintain a practice. And that's obviously not true because most firms are not back in the office. Almost all big firms are out until at least middle of next year. And yet they're finding ways to making sure it works. Now, it's not without its challenges, of course, as we all know. We're all working virtually, right? But what's positive about this is from, and you asked me what's sort of one thing I about this whole time is that anything is possible, right? Anything is possible because before, when you have a young associate, the person that needs to get work, they really need to kind of shadow a partner, right? They have to go find that person and then there's a lot of relationship building. There's a lot of lunches, there's a lot of extracurricular activities in order to form those bonds, in order for these young attorneys to get the work they need and get the mentorship they need. Now, that's all been kind of like flattened, okay? And there's got to be a new way of figuring out how to do that. So it's both an obstacle and an opportunity. And the way I say that is so many, just a little sidebar, diversity is a huge issue within the legal industry, right? It's been a huge problem to maintain diverse candidates across board. Yet the way I think allow us to work more virtually, it gives an opportunity us for folks to kind of be on an even playing field, provided that the organizations employed them understand sort of all the challenges that's facing them as well, right? So right now we have a lot of working parents. I'm one of them. It's tremendously difficult when you have kids at home that you need to help them. So, and yet, it's also another thing. People were saying there's no work and life balance, and yet folks now able to see their kids much more. They're to be at home more, and that was an industry problem that was plaguing. And so it's really interesting. I definitely don't have all the answers, technology-wise. There's so many things to choose from, you could talk to 50 law firms, and I will bet about none of them are going to use the same technology. They all have different platforms. They all have different billing software. They all have different docketing system. They all have different document management software. So I think that's where the challenge is. It's like there's no uniformity across board.
No, and I think a lot of people are trying to figure things out, right? As bad as COVID has been, it's also been like the great accelerator. Like some of these things that we thought would not happen or would take 10, 15 years to happen have suddenly happened. And
Right.
right. And so it's not that people are like, okay, when do we go back to normal? Or even what is the new normal? I look at it as just our lives are a series of next normals. And I think that's what everyone's
Yes.
kind of struggling with is I see a lot of like firms or just companies in general going like, I'm waiting for someone to tell me what that next normal is. And it's like, you actually need to try and create that yourself. Don't wait for somebody else. You're missing a huge opportunity. So do you see some of the firms out there are kind of embracing that role and kind of leading the way?
Yes, yes, I do. And it's funny you say that we have to embrace the new normal that's constantly changing. And in some way, I feel, this is more back to some of the clients we serve, that entrepreneurship, because what you take for granted as sort of things are the same. Now we're just like our clients, things for them change constantly, right? When you're running a business, there's always new things you got to tackle. And it's the same thing for law firms now. They have to think faster. They have to make changes faster. What I see again, and I think this is not unique to the legal industry, is how to keep your teams together when you're remote, right? So, for example, I manage a team of there's 8 of us, not a big team, but we have been very blessed. We've been very busy in the IP area during this time, and we also have really try to come up ways to stay connected with each other. I find that my job as sort of managing the team is that one of my duty is to really making sure I talk to them, check in with them, even if it's a short text on a weekly basis, because it's so easy for people not to tell you what's going on. And they could be battling all sorts of things. They could be battling family being sick, they're sick, they could be battling whatever it is, that's very challenging, but some are just more quiet. So if you don't reach out to them and build that relationship, it takes time. It doesn't just happen. If you only call them once every few months, they're not going to feel comfortable telling you what's going on.
Yeah.
And then we also have our weekly meetings. I try to do 2 a week. One is for sort of official business, and the other one is just lighthearted. It's just checking in with each other as a group. We do a little thing called, we call it Costco Corner. Just what's the best special going on that week at Costco? What's low at Costco, so people can stock up. If they found the toilet paper, wipes, we share that with each other. It seems silly, but I think at this time it's really important to be connected that way. And that's what I hear from a lot of firms. They are creating a lot of these sort of virtual connections, and they've been very creative. I love hearing things. They have, sort of wine tasting at home. They have movie screening. So when Ruth Bader Ginsburg, our Supreme Court Justice who passed away, firms had screenings on that, and then had discussion groups talk about it. And I don't even know if firms would have done that before COVID. But because of, sort of this unique situation we're in, there's more ways for us to kind of figure out outside the box, right? Before it's always sort of a lunch or happy hour, but now, we're really thinking creatively how to connect with each other.
That's fantastic. I think too many leaders underscore the need to help build resiliency in their teams. I know that people always think like you got your professional life or personal life, but now the two are melded together, right? This work-life integration, and our job as leaders is to actually help make sure our employees or direct reports are not disconnected, that they're actually okay. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I just want to add that, I mean, obviously for law firms, productivity is very important. And I think across the board, again, not unique to the legal industry, productivity is down just because you at home, you just interrupted so much more. So, and it's very easy to kind of go down to the negative and be in the negative space with, your team members about that. but I think it's very crucial to have a lot of empathy, a lot of kindness during this time, because again, you just don't know what people are going through. And I find that whenever I had higher engagement with team members, that productivity goes up, just because it's not about so much as overseeing them. It's about they know that, okay, what they do matters to the team, right? They're still contributing. And if there are other issues, I will play the role of whatever it is that needs to be done, whether it's counsel or whether it's something. I mean, collectively, we all have so much experience and wisdoms about challenges we each other face, right? Like somebody, I had COVID, for example. So when other team members thought they had it, it's just such crazy time to think, how do you even get a simple COVID test, right? But I was able to relay that knowledge, which saves time and headache, and let them know that they're not in it alone, you know?
That's huge and great advice. So Mei, if people want to learn more about what you're up to, the latest challenges of the industry, or what the Costco corner of the week is, what's the best way to stay in touch?
Please feel free to email me at mtsang@umberzipser.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. And I am just happy to talk to anyone about anything. You know, we all, I think that's just the thing, we all need to be open-minded and stay connected, right? So I would love to learn what's what's the tip of the week, what the life hacks, and what other specials that Costco has that, you know, with the holidays coming up, right? So.
All right, audience, you heard. She'll trade Costco corner for life hacks. So please reach out to her. We'll make sure all that info is in the show notes. Mei, thank you for coming on and sharing your story with us.
Thank you, Neil. This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, if you like today's show, please remember to hit the like button and leave a comment.
If you've been enjoying the Changing the Story podcast series, please subscribe and share it with your friends.
Thank you.